Were extremely impressed, because back in the 60s, nobody meant no crime. This was, the krays believed, an opportunity for Foreman to repay his debts to them, and an opportunity for them to commit murder without fear of being caught. The very thought of being free to murder at will coursed through schizophrenic Ronnie Kray's veins. Nobody was now safe, and the krays, backed up with Foreman's muscle and body disposal facility, believed that they could now not only control the East End, but the whole of London. The West End was a gold mine, and seizing control of it became a priority for the krays. Only two things stood in their way: brothers Charles and Eddie Richardson.
In the 60s, it was great, because when it was good, it was very, very good. I mean, a nice Bentley car, pulled up nightclubs and all this and that, everything was going on. It was great, you know. And then that was probably the best period, you know, when all that was going on.
If you had the West End, that's the jewel in the crown in London. Not the pubs, not this, not that, the West End. The West End is a money-making machine. And they had their finger in every pie. If the machine went into a club, they was basically minding the club without having putting anyone on the door or whatever. But they were very honest and very good with everyone. They weren't greedy. They invited, if anyone went to work with them, they put them in on the crew and give them a fair share. And that's what made my dad and Eddie so good.
Well, certain people was honourable, yeah, and other people wasn't. So I've always been considered honourable. That's why I got a lot of opportunities and offered different things that other people wouldn't have ever had a sniff of.
And they said the Richardsons didn't want to know the twins.
Do you remember a time when there was a meeting where the krays were saying to the Richardsons, look, we'll have a deal over this, and Eddie told them to piss off.
It was in the scrapyard at Dog Kennel Hill in Camberwell. And Richardson said, we don't want to know about you twins. I didn't want, because they was getting too much business themselves. They were a rich firm, the Richardsons.
So what was Ronnie saying to them?
Let's cut the West End up in a sensible sort of way. Because he thought he would watch a few American gangster films, and he saw how Dutchy Schultz and Al Capone done it, and he thought he could do it the same way.
Richardson wasn't there.
And he said, no, we don't want to know.
It was sort of underlying rivalry. We never actually clashed in any way, you know. There was an animosity. They had a few little near fallouts in the West End, different clubs and things. What happened was the row. I mean, there was a fellow who had 6 betting shops, you know, betting offices, and one of these young guys, he was only 20, Kenny Hampton. He was a lovely kid, and the girls liked him because he's a good-looking boy. And he was in a club one night, at the Stall Club, I think it was, yeah. And he got bashed up down in the toilets for no reason either. They kicked the shit out of him. I find out that Eddie and Fraser and them had done, and the rest at the firm. So my brother George had the Red Salve Club up at Clapham Common, and they were all down there. And George rang me, he said, well, they're all downstairs. And so I went down there, and I was very angry, and I only went with one person, Ronnie King, and they was all in a group, and I went over and I pulled Eddie about it, and I stuck this 38 up his nostril, you know, up his nose. And I was shaking because I could have easily let it go, you know, because when you're angry, you shake, you tremble a little bit, you know. We had a little argument, fall out, and I said, well, down at that price, if anybody, I just said, if that happens to anybody else, who I said, you had the story, you kicked the dog, you kicked the master. I said, and that kid worked for me. I said, and he's going to hospital, and that made out it was nothing, but it wasn't nothing. It was a liberty, and I